Hello, my name is Laetitia Thiessen and I work at FEPS, the Foundation for European Progressive Studies, as the Senior Policy Analyst on Gender Equality. In a context of very turbulent time and ongoing crisis, it's been already well established that women and girls are impacted first and worst. The UN has already established that at the current pace, it is putting gender equality 300 years away from now. And this sort of regression in women's rights is particularly felt when it comes to one of the most iconic and essential rights for women, and that includes the right to abortion. The decision of the US Supreme Court in 2022 to overturn the Roe versus Wade ruling is very illustrative of the sort of backpedaling that is currently happening. Europe is certainly not immune to similar development, with the steady rise of anti-gender movement trampling on women's most fundamental rights. This is also a very sobering reminder of the well-known and widely cited words of French feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir, who already warned us about this. Never forget that it only takes a political, economic or religious crisis for women's rights to be called into question. These rights can never be taken for granted. You must remain vigilant throughout your life. FEPS in Brussels, together with the Karl Renner Institute in Austria, decided to join forces in order to establish how much of a precondition the right to abortion is to access to social justice and gender equality. This is precisely what you will find here in this book on abortion in the EU, authored by Professor Bérengère Marques-Pereira.
Les femmes ont conquis leur émancipation à travers l'acquisition des droits de citoyenneté. En revanche, l'extension de cette citoyenneté à la liberté reproductive demeure un enjeu pour le contrôle des femmes sur leur sexualité.
Historians have actually shown that abortion has always existed based on methods transferred from generation to generation, regardless of whether it was legal or not. And in fact, abortion, if delivered in adequate conditions for women, is one of the safest legal procedures. However, it is when governments start restricting it that women are compelled to resort to clandestine and clearly unsafe methods. This is particularly true for those who cannot necessarily afford to travel abroad to have an abortion in a different country or to seek private care. Yes, abortion is widely accessible across Europe, but in practice, its access is not always so straightforward, and there are also many variations across countries.
Cette analyse montre que le droit à l'avortement en tant que liberté reproductive pour les femmes n'est acquis dans aucun pays de l'Union européenne. Pas même ceux qui possèdent un régime d'autorisation parmi les plus permissifs.
So in that sense, it is quite useful to make a distinction between reproductive freedom, which should be guaranteed by the complete decriminalization of abortion, and access to abortion. Depending on her country of residence, a woman may need to undertake a completely different journey, facing more or less obstacles on the way, whether they are of a legislative nature, but also economic, social, medical, ethical or religious. And so there are 5 types of abortion regimes that can be distinguished in the member states of the EU and also including in the UK. First of all, we have the authorization regime that has very easy access to abortion and very few restrictive conditions. Typically, that would be the case of the Nordics and the Netherlands. Secondly, we have authorization regimes that partially or totally decriminalize abortions, coupled with a set of restrictive conditions that include the time limits, but also other social or medical preconditions. Nevertheless, access remains pretty high in terms of ease of access, and that would be, for instance, the case of Belgium and France. Thirdly, we have authorization regimes where access to abortion is restricted and or partially obstructed. This would be the case, for instance, in Germany or Austria, but also typically in Mediterranean countries where the religious factor plays a role for objectors of conscience, like in the case of Italy. Fourthly, we have authorization regimes where abortion is permitted but hampered due to sometimes very severely restrictive conditions, as would be the case in countries like Bulgaria, Hungary or Romania. And last but not least, we have also authorization regimes that basically prohibit abortion by imposing such restrictive conditions that make it virtually impossible for women to access it, as is the case currently in Poland or Malta. And so Professor Bérengère Marques-Pereira offers us a full picture of the actors involved in the debates on abortion, both on the opponents and on the supporters' side.
Et je m'attache dans cet ouvrage à déceler les logiques discursives des acteurs favorables et défavorables à cette revendication. Les uns et les autres mobilisent le langage des droits humains pour légitimer ou délégitimer celle-ci. L'objet de cet ouvrage porte sur l'analyse du contenu substantiel des cadres normatifs qui sous-tendent les positions de ces acteurs.
You will also, through this book, familiarize yourself with all the international treaties and intergovernmental bodies that enshrine and protect the right to abortion as a matter of equality and non-discrimination. In the appendices, you will find a very practical list of all the landmark legal bases enshrining the right to abortion in the international landscape, ranging from the UN to CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, but also the Council of Europe and the European Union.
We want to change the message. We do not longer want to say you did something criminal, but we exempt you from being punished. This creates stigma, what will keep reconfirming until every woman knows you have the very choice over your own body. Women's rights are human rights, and we will never stop fighting for it.
We therefore very warmly recommend you this book if you as well believe that time for action is long past due. And of course, if you like this video, do not hesitate to engage with us on social media and to follow us on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much.